So thank you, Dr. Boyle. You've been completely vindicated from what you said in January and February and March on this show and others. So thank you for joining us. Go ahead and start wherever you'd like.
Well, thank you, Alex, for having me on, and my best to your viewing audience. And I really want to commend you, Alex, for getting the message out here very early on and consistently so that large numbers of people can hear this when, of course, all the mainstream news media has completely censored me right out of there, despite the fact that I wrote the law that governs this. But in any event, we must understand that the Wuhan BSL-4 is China's Fort Detrick. Okay, it's a euphemism just to call it Wuhan BSL-4. This is China's Fort Detrick. And we all know that at Fort Detrick, they engage the research, development, testing, stockpiling of biological weapons. They've done that from the get-go. So we have to start with that proposition. Yes, I did hear the statement on CNN just recently by Ambassador Branstad there from Iowa. I agreed with what he was saying. I did listen to the Hong Kong doctor's interview there on Tucker blowing the whistle here. And I did read her article, her scientific article, and I sent you the portions that I thought were important from her summing it up. But as I said, starting January 24, this Wuhan coronavirus is an offensive biological warfare weapon. It has been given gain of function activities to make it more lethal and more infectious. The Hong Kong doctor pointed this out in both her interview and in her scholarly paper. HIV has been DNA genetically engineered in there. That has been confirmed by the French Nobel Prize winner in medicine, who also discovered that HIV created AIDS. That's pretty definitive. And of course, you mentioned the Indian study that we discussed before. In addition, the Wuhan BSL-4 bragged on its website that it had been able to apply nanotechnology to viruses. Nanotechnology is used to aerosol biological warfare agents in order to deliver them to human beings. And that is certainly the tip-off right there, the aerosolization of a biological warfare agent, that it's clearly a weapon. Fort Detrick does the exact same thing. They've done it to Ebola. They've done it to other.
And by the way, you're not the only one saying this. All the scientists that look at it now are saying what you said. But how did you know in January? You want to talk about yourself? I know you have sources, or was it just the papers and following what happened at Chapel Hill 5 years ago? How were you the first to call it? You are the first. You're recognized as that.
You're right, Alex. And as a matter of fact, last May, I gave a 90-minute interview to 3 reporters for Associated Press. And they admitted I was the first to identify this. And then I gave them the 90-minute interview. And that interview never appeared for obvious reasons. As I said before, I've been censored out of all mainstream U.S. news media sources, and that includes...
And now, what do you make of Facebook blocking this admitted Chinese scientist in Hong Kong at the WHO viral center? I mean, she has the pedigree. She's saying everything you say is right. She's being censored now. This is outrageous.
You have to read the paper, right? Everything is in there in great scientific detail, including how to manufacture COVID-19, how they did it. You know, I don't have a PhD in microbiology, but I can read these things, and it's all there. It's very clear, sure.
Well, sure, I don't just believe her. I read the paper too. It's all the background that was, most of this is public. Like these scientists think we're dumb. Most of this is actually already out there.
That's correct. That's why it's so important that you put me on to go through those scientific studies that were in the public record in existence at that time. And now this Hong Kong doctor simply reinforces everything, including the gain of function work done at the University of North Carolina involving the Wuhan BSL-4. I mean, why is the University of North Carolina working with China's Fort Detrick? And indeed, that is why you need a BSL-4 to aerosolize these weapons with nanotechnology. That's why people have to wear a moon suit. That is why you have to have a portable air supply. That is why it is so dangerous. It floats on the air, in the air, above the air, up to 27
Which you said in
feet.
January, but China denied. Now they admit. Now the U.S. ambassador to China is confirming what you said, which they're saying is an act of war, which is why the Pentagon didn't want to admit this. So let's talk about, we'll go wherever you want. We can also talk about, because you did author the U.S. biological weapons law, and then it became a treaty, about what does this mean to the world that this is coming out? And then China's trying to blame Trump and America. Is there any, did Trump fail? I'll get your expert view on that. Dr. Francis Boyle, law professor, author of the U.S. biological weapons law that then got adopted as the world law, is the trailblazer in this, and he's been proven totally right. We'll break it all down the other side. You might want to tell folks, tune in. All right, Dr. Francis Boyle, a professor, an expert on bioweapons, the first person to expose this being man-made out of Wuhan is here. He doesn't like to speculate and ask why they did it or who's behind it. He just gets into what's going on. But now the U.S. ambassador from China has been recalled, not under trouble, but to come back because he basically said we're in a war footing. You've got China buzzing Hong Kong and Taiwan. You've got all these scientists coming out confirming it's man-made. It has great gain of function. And then you've got all these U.S. corporations involved in the UN and U.S. researchers. So instead of me asking questions, it's probably best just the rest of the segment, the next, so Dr. Boyle can get into all this. And he's also written this big breakdown he sent us. If you'd like to go over this, sir, I know this is, I was told my eyes only, but I was thinking this might be notes to cover. There's so many things here. Just get into whatever you think's best for folks.
Sure. Well, Alex, again, this was, COVID-19 was developed as an offensive biological warfare weapon by China at their Fort Detrick. I guess they figured we have a Fort Detrick and our biological weapons, so they're going to do the exact same thing. We must be clear what happened here. Others have said, oh, well, they're just trying to do this research and develop a vaccine. That's pure baloney. This is an offensive biological warfare weapon, existentially dangerous, gain of function, DNA, genetic engineering, HIV right in there. God knows what else is in there from what I've read, and also nanotechnology, so it can travel up to 27 feet in the air. Even if you believe the Woodward tapes, President Trump said, yes, it travels on the air. He is correct about that. Now, what happened here? As far as I have been able to reconstruct, Alex, the first public case mentioned in press over there in Asia was about November 16th of someone going to a hospital with a strange pneumonia-like illness in Wuhan, China. Okay. Now, to me, that indicates then that President Xi probably knew about this immediately. Again, this is his Fort Detrick. We have pictures of him out there at Fort Detrick. He knew exactly what was going on at Fort Detrick. this notion that, well, these low-level officials, town officials, covered it up, that's nonsense too. You know, let's be honest. I'm not anti-communist one way or the other. I'm not anti-China. I'm not here to bash China or anything like that. But under Xi, we see a communist dictatorship on steroids. So he was alerted certainly by then, if not before then, and ordered an immediate cover-up of this exact catastrophe. He knew full well how dangerous it was. They had done the exact same thing with the SARS pandemic back in 2003. That was a biological warfare agent. It leaked out of a Chinese BSL-3, and they proceeded to cover that up too. Xi had this, covered it up. The whole Chinese government proceeded to cover it up. If they hadn't done this, if they had immediately clamped down on Wuhan, hopefully, you know, maybe this all could have been prevented. I can't say. I think it could have, but they didn't. They covered it up, and they have to assume responsibility for this. And we have to understand that to be fair in the situation. And again, I'm not trying to bash China here. I'm just trying to tell the facts as I see them, because we have
absolutely.
To have
and you said earlier, Dr. Boyle, just to interrupt, you said this is their Fort Detrick, and you said Xi Jinping was at Fort Detrick. You're being clear. He was at, you're saying, the Wuhan lab on video over and over again. We have 5-year-old videos on Spanish and on Italian TV bragging they were developing chimeras. I mean, they weren't even hiding all this. So the fact that they're trying to deny this is going on is asinine.
That's correct. And so, you know, we have to understand what happened here. And the ambassador today was correct to say, Ambassador Branstad, that this came out of this lab and they proceeded to cover it up. And I think the cover up began no later than November 16. It could have started before that.
And that's why, and I respect you. You were the first to expose this. I respect you. You think it's accidental looking at the chain of events, then they just used it for political purposes over here?
Right. I did hear that the Hong Kong scientists say she thought it was deliberately released. And with all due respect to her, she's a very courageous woman. But she provided no evidence of that. As far as I have been able to tell from my research, it somehow accidentally leaked out of there.
Because the response looks like it's a leak, right? It just looks like that.
I believe it's a leak, right. I don't think it was a deliberate release. I'm prepared to consider more evidence if I see it.
What if somebody inside, because Gates had a bunch of researchers, so did Fauci, what if it wasn't even China? What if one of their people leaked it on purpose and then knew China would cover it up and then they knew they would blame it on Trump? Because that's been the chain of events. You know, there could be a third party involved in this.
We're not sure, but you are correct about Fauci, because this was on Fauci's computer. He was paying for it. You can read the Hong Kong scientists' paper that just came out this week. NIAID was paying for that. It was approved by NIH. So I suspect, I'm sure, that the moment the first report came out in the international news media, that there was someone with a pneumonia-like illness there in Wuhan, Fauci called it up on his computer and it figured, just type in Wuhan. What are we doing in Wuhan? And it was clear that University of North Carolina, Wuhan BSL-4, Fort Detrick scientific article came right up. I got it off their webpage.
I was about to say, they did not cover their tracks. Did you see the World Bank stuff where 2 years ago they called it COVID-19? And then in March in Spain, they found COVID-19 in the sewage?
I hadn't seen that report, no. But in any event.
We know they've been cooking this stuff up for a while is what I'm saying.
Right, they've been lying, you know, but we lie about it too, Alex. I mean, we have to be realistic. You know, when it comes to the research, development, testing, stockpiling of biological weapons, they all lie. All these great powers.
No, Dr. Boyle, I'm going to give you the floor again when we come back, but I'm asking you respectfully, and I mean that respectfully. This gives me a headache. I study this all day. I try to tell the truth. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. It gives me a headache because we know it's man-made. Everybody's proven that. You said it first. It's true. And so then who's behind it? And I get, no, it tends to be incompetence. It gets leaked out. But I look at the time it gets leaked out. It just really gives me a lot of pause, and it gets me really confused. So let's come back, get into big picture, and where you see this going as a guy that's been in the zeitgeist. So I just want, I know you don't speculate, which is good. I get that, but it's also frustrating. Just as a husband, as a father, as a human, what do you really think's behind this? Where do you think this is going with COVID-19, all the rest of it? Because we know it's man-made. That's been proven. We know China covered it up. So what's coming next? Dr. Francis Boyle is our guest. I'm Alex Jones. This is InfoWars. Stay with us. You're not getting filtered BS from some corporation or some party or some government. This is a real broadcast with affiliates all over the country and millions of you listening right now. Dr. Francis Boyle is a real lawyer who wrote the U.S. biological weapons law, that much of which was turned into global treaty, who first laid out exactly what was happening even before the major Indian universities and Australian universities and others came out and said it. Now you've got a big virologist that worked at the WHO who saw it and saw the proof, and they knew what was going on. She's come out, she's being censored. So Dr. Boyle's not going to tell us speculation, but he's been accurate about the fact that it's man-made. That's now come out. The fact to suppress that shows how desperate they are. I could ask him politically, what does he think is going to happen next? Because he's been at The Hague. He's represented world leaders in The Hague. He's prosecuted war criminals, Milosevic. What does he think Trump's response should be? What should the U.S. ambassador's response be? What should our response be? That's another question. But the next 2 segments, I'm going to just sit here and turn my mic off, or I'll jump in because it's all so interesting. What do you want to impart to folks? What do you want to cover? Because you already told us what's coming or what happened. Tell us what's coming next, Dr. Boyle. We really appreciate you.
Well, it's important to understand this too, then, Alex, as I was saying. It's clear that Fauci and NIAID immediately covered this up because they knew what was going on. It's also clear that the National Institutes of Health, they were on that too. The Hong Kong doctor made that clear in her paper. Indeed, this was paused for a while, and then it was resumed. That all happened in the Obama administration. No one is focusing on that at all. Now we get to President Trump. And I'm not here to criticize President Trump. I'm just trying to lay out the facts as I see them. The New York Times reported on Friday, May 22, 2020, that our intelligence agencies did not inform President Trump until January 23 in his morning briefing, January 23. Well, excuse me, I figured it out the next morning, January 24, after a very short period of research, and put out a worldwide alert to well over 500 news media sources. And then later that day gave my interview to Geopolitics and Empire that went viral all over the world. So you mean to tell me that we spend $60 billion a year on these spook agencies, and they have satellites and intercepts? They've got everyone wired up the kazoo, as we know from Snowden, and they didn't figure this out until January 23? That's preposterous. They knew full well what was going on. If I could figure this out myself, no later than a week after I paid attention to it, our spook agencies knew full well that this was what was going on. I'm sure probably around the time Fauci figured it out.
Exactly. So I said I would interrupt. So then I know you don't extrapolate, but why then did they not tell the president, or why did they act dumb? Sure.
Well, first we know, and again, I'm just trying to be objective here, Alex. I'm not supporting President Trump. I'm not opposing.
No, I get it. You're literally just a lawyer and a researcher
CIA,
giving us facts.
The CIA and all these spook agents, as you pointed out, the deep state, they don't like President Trump, and they've been trying to bring him down from the get-go.
They wanted him to be caught flat-footed, which is now their whole thing.
Second, the CIA has been involved in offensive, criminal, biological warfare work from the get-go. Indeed, the book Germs by Miller and Broad pointed that out in the summer of 2000. So they were covering themselves up until it became impossible not to say something. The height of the pandemic in China was about January 17th or something like that. So I guess that by January 23, they figured they had to tell President Trump. Well, if they had told, and Fauci and NIH and NIAID and all of our spook agencies had told President Trump in the middle of November, when I'm sure they all knew what was going on, he could have called up Xi and read him the Riot Act and said, you shut down Wuhan immediately. And hopefully all this could have been avoided. Now, I'm not trying to explain away what President Trump did or did not do.
Sure, but clearly the deep state didn't tell Trump, and now they're trying to blame him.
Yeah. What else can I say? I'm not trying to explain. Trump has made a lot of mistakes, in my opinion.
Well, sure. So let me ask you this. What do you think Trump should do? What should Trump do right now? I mean, because his ambassador says China's behind this and covered it up. That's all confirmed. So what does Trump do?
Well, Alex, the second thing you asked me earlier, before we get to what Trump, I think, should do, is the agenda here. Now, the agenda is very clear. They want the establishment here, the deep state, the rest of them, want to inject every human being in the world with one of these coronaviruses, vaccines. And these vaccines, in my opinion, will probably be more dangerous than useless. And massive compulsion will be used, certainly against the American people, to get them to take these vaccines. There is no evidence that I am aware of any type of successful vaccine against a biological warfare agent. As a matter of fact, the last time we had this was in the run-up to Gulf War I, where the Bush Senior administration forced our armed forces to take experimental medical vaccines for anthrax and botulinum. And as you know, I've been working on that for a number of years, too. 500,000 U.S. troops were forced to take those vaccines. In the interim, the last time I looked at the figures, about 11,000 U.S. troops died and 100,000 were disabled. So this is what I'm afraid we are looking at here. There is no evidence to believe that there is any type or could be a vaccine, a safe and effective vaccine. Maybe they'll call it a vaccine.
No, I agree with you. I think Trump has been snookered into saying he's for the vaccine to try to make things positive. But now they're saying, oh, when it hurts people, it's your fault when they're the ones that engineered all this. I mean, I think Trump's really in trouble for that. There's no vaccine for an offensive biological warfare weapon that has been given gain of functions activity. Got chimera, like you said, it just keeps giving these evil gifts. Who knows what it even does?
Right, and the proof is that we've already been through this before. It has HIV DNA genetically engineered into it. We have no vaccine against HIV. I mean, we've tried for a decade and we haven't got one.
Well, that's my next question when we come back to Dr. Boyle. When it's got HIV delivery system and all these other viruses, clearly they've already studied what it's going to do with a CRISPR editing system. Who knows what this even really is? I mean, who knows what it's going to do?
That's correct. And synthetic biology was involved in here too. If you read that UNC Wuhan BSL-4 contract, they used synthetic coronavirus as the backbone for all this. So you're perfectly correct. So I think these vaccines will be dangerous. They'll be just as dangerous as the vaccines.
Well, Gates says 80% get sick. Stay there. I mean, it's not, they're not doubting. Like, Gates goes, this is the most dangerous vaccine ever. He's telling us that. What is he getting us ready for? Dr. Francis Boyle, the guy that trailblazed it all, the guy that wrote the U.S. biological weapons law, he's here. We're so blessed to have him. He'll be with us straight ahead. Stay with us back in 4 minutes. All right, final segment with Dr. Francis Boyle. We really appreciate him. He's written this big breakdown for me with all the documentation. I want to just give him the floor here at the end. I keep saying that, I keep jumping in, but he's got a lot out. Every topic you want to cover, every angle, what you see going on here, what you think President Trump should do. Dr. Boyle, thank you for joining us.
Alex, one other point. You saw all the big pharma running an ad in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, say, oh, well, we won't distribute this vaccine unless it has the approval of the FDA. Well, that's a joke and a fraud, too. The FDA is listed on the University of North Carolina, Wuhan BSL-4. The FDA works in cahoots with China's Fort Detrick. The FDA gave emergency use for the use of those experimental medical vaccines against our own troops that poisoned our own troops for anthrax and botulism in violation of the Nuremberg Code on Medical Experimentation. So, of course, that's totally preposterous. You can't believe one word any of these agencies are saying. They are all involved in this. They are all covering it up. It's all there in the UNC Wuhan BSL-4 contract. Now, and as confirmed now by the this very courageous Hong Kong scientist, I do believe, so I think these vaccines that we're all going to be compelled and coerced by our employers. And by the way, they're going to order the members of our armed forces to take these vaccines, just like did the anthrax and the botulism. And look what happened to them. So that's the agenda here. It's clear they're going to pump us all up with these vaccines that are more dangerous than worthless to get us to go along with what, you've correctly pointed out will be a police state. I don't doubt that at all. Now, that being said, I do believe therapeutics can help and prevent us. Yes, I think masks will help. Social distancing will help. Sure, washing your hands will help. I just appeared on a panel on Sunday with my friend, Dr. Merle Nass. I've worked with her for many years on against biological weapons. And Dr. Nass is a doctor of internal medicine. She's not one of these pointy-headed lab scientists. And Dr. Nass has said she believes that hydrochloroquine can be successful here. And she said 2 doses a week. She's also mentioned vitamin D. I think at my recommendation, you had Dr. Levy on here talking about vitamin D.
That's an interruption. Why do you think Fauci suddenly came out for vitamin D and for C?
Well, this is a limited hangout, Alex, right? That's what Fauci's doing, just like Nixon. It's limited hangout just to protect his own rear end. He's up to his eyeballs in this. He and the rest of them could get prosecuted, should be prosecuted for violating my biological weapons.
Well, that was my next question. How do we have retribution for what we can prove? There were U.S. government funding under Obama and Fauci to create things like this. It's on record. It's not debatable. How do we prosecute them? Because that's how we bring them out of the power structure to keep using this as a power grab.
Right. Attorney General Barr could do this. Convene a grand jury, subpoenas. I mean, it's all there. I think it'd be a slam dunk conviction, and Fauci and the rest of them would face life imprisonment, of course. Everyone on that UNC Wuhan BSL-4 contract. I'm not saying that Obama knew what was going on. It's above his pay grade. I don't think he knows anything about this either. He's behind me at Harvard Law School, but I don't think he has any scientific training or anything like that. But yeah, I believe that we can treat it with therapeutics. And by the way, Alex, Wuhan, the UNC people, they knew that there was no such thing as a safe and effective vaccine here. They were not developing a vaccine. They were developing a therapeutic, remdesivir. All right, that's what they moved into to counteract.
And this is beyond key. Wuhan was developing this. They were not testing vaccines. They were testing therapeutics because they know what it's a chimera. It's so complex you can't counter it with a vaccine, right?
I believe, well, certainly that's clear on the.
Well, even Fauci's saying now maybe a vaccine won't work.
It's not going to work. Right. This is a limited.
But how did you say that 8 months ago or 7 months? You did say vaccines won't work with this.
Pardon me?
You did say vaccines would not work with this months ago.
Right. No. And now this Chinese doctor, very courageous woman, has confirmed everything I was saying. Therapeutics, I think, will work. That's the best we have. Dr. Nass feels this can be brought under control. No, Alex, I have 2 doctors from Harvard, but I can't pull out your appendix. You know, your father's a doctor, fine. So I have to rely on reputable, scholarly doctors who actually treat people. And I know Dr. Nass, a very courageous person. If she's saying hydrochlorine, these hydroxy pills can work.
Sure, we have a bunch of studies on that. So let me ask you this then. Just big picture. Obviously, a lot of political groups jumped on the bandwagon. They used the crisis for power. Where is it now with the ambassador for the U.S. and China coming out and saying, you know, they're covering it up? I mean, it looks like more and more that the public is waking up to this.
Well, maybe it's a sign that, you know, President Trump is at some point prepared to come out and level with the American people about what happened here. I know he said he didn't want to panic people. Well, okay, but I agree with you. We are in the fight of our lives here. I think.
Well, and that's it. They're not. Here's the thing. They're using the fact that he doesn't level to panic people, whereas he can just be honest about it all, level with them, and then they get the blame because they did it.
I've advised this before you on your program before, Alex. I felt President Trump just needs to get up there, lay out everything that happened here, just like I tried to lay it out to you, and then say, you know, these vaccines are worthless. It's a waste of money. They'll probably be more dangerous than useless. We need to put all our money in therapeutics and treatment. And I think if we do that, we could bring this under control. Yes.
We got about 3 minutes left. Any other tidbits you want to add for folks? We really appreciate you joining us.
No, I think I've said pretty much what I want to say. Is there? I sent you my prasis there. Is there something you wanted to ask me about? I mean, I know,
and I got it this morning. I read over most of it. I mean, it's a lot of key stuff. Some I knew, some I didn't. I mean, we could post it if you want, or you could come back again in a few days on my show, other shows, and just we do a commercial-free show too, just to get it all on record. If you want to do a show Sunday or something,
yes, I think I'm always happy to talk with you. Sure.
Well, listen, I'm just very honored because supportive. I'm not a top lawyer that wrote the U.S. biological weapons law, and I just interview you. But I mean, the listeners really appreciate it. You've been proven dead on, so now this is all coming to a head. I'm just trying to figure out what's going on, just like you are.
Well, that's correct. And I'm constantly evaluating the information as it comes in. I know I hear from some of your viewers and they send me things. I do the best I can.
That's my last question. Right now, how do people find you? Not just the books you've written, but how do people get in contact with Dr. Francis Boyle, Professor Francis Boyle?
Well, I'm just out there. You just Google my name. There it is. But I really think that President Trump needs to call a press conference and explain exactly what happened here, and that who are the culprits. I'm not in favor of going to war against China or anything like that. We need to save the American people. I believe we're in World War III here against COVID-19. We have 200,000 Americans dead already, and that is a gross underestimate of the number. even a minimum figure is 400,000 will be dead by the first of the year.
Well, regardless, them claiming Trump has a non-response is being used to kick him out of office. And so we need to address who's behind it, who released it, and who did it. Dr. Boyle, thank you so much for the time. Please come back on with us next week with an update, and thank you so much.
Well, thanks for having me on. And Biden's not going to be any better either between you and me. So
come on with us next week. Tell us what you think.